Hello, today we're going to go over how to use the QuickBooks connector. Now, I'm going to tell you a little accounting joke that I made up, but you can tell all your accounting friends. I'm sure you'll be a hit. The joke goes like this. I'm helping a restaurant right now, and the owner is just focused on sales and cost of goods sold. And I'm like, ew, gross. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. So we're going to go to data at the top. We're going to hit connectors and we are going to type in QuickBooks. Now, I do want to preface something. When we look at QuickBooks, we have a couple. There's QuickBooks Online Reports, there's QuickBooks Connector, there's Workbench, all these pieces. You have to make sure that you have a QuickBooks Online account for the QuickBooks Online Reports connector, which is the main we're going to use. If somebody, for instance, has QuickBooks downloaded to their computer and they're using the program that is not online, you will not be able to access it. That's happened a couple of times to me before. So make sure if you have an online account, then we can use the online reports connector. That's the main thing that we're going to use. So let's go use that. Now, first, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to connect. And it's very, very easy. All you're going to do is you're going to connect and you're going to put in your username, your password, allow permission, and that's good to go. So if you haven't done that already, go do that and come back here when you are ready. Okay, let's say you've connected already. We're going to go hit select account, pick our QuickBooks account and hit next. Okay, now I want to show you this. We have some pre-made reports that are right out of the box. If you look, we have accounts payable, we have balance sheet, general ledger, we have P&L, all these things in here. Okay, and the main ones that we really use, that I use a lot, are general ledger, balance sheet, and the P&L. So let's go through each one of these individually. They're very easy to do, but I want to show you some extra stuff in here in case you did not know. Okie dokie. So first we're going to pick on balance sheet. Let's go pick on balance sheet. Now, I'm assuming that if you're doing this, you have somewhat of an understanding of the accounting that you're looking to do. So here what we have with transaction date duration is you could use this fiscal year to date. Very, very easy. You could do a custom single date. Now, what this means is this means one point in time, not from here to there. You can also do this relative thing. So you could say, give me 1 day back. The reason why you want to do something like this is if you want to see changes that might happen. So you might say, give me every single day that has happened, like, or have this run every single day and append to itself. We could do that one if we really want that to happen. You could do all dates if you really, really want to. I would maybe argue against doing that, because do you really need all dates in there? Or you could do any of these timepieces that we have here: this month, month to date, fiscal, etc., etc., etc. The one that I like to go for custom date range. And here what I do is I'll do relative instead of a specific. I'll do relative for both. And I will usually do relative 730 days back. That's roughly 2 years back, till 1 day back, till yesterday. Okay, so now we have an accounting method we can pick. We could pick cash or accrual. Cash is obviously a very cash business. So if you're operating something like a food stand, or you're operating something like a hair salon or a gym, anything like that, that's usually a cash business where you just get cash. You don't really have to deal with accruals. Accrual, obviously, if you have things that are like an accounts payable, receivable, stuff like that is what we would do. I'm going to pick cash for now, make it really, really easy. Okay, summarize column by. Now, what you can do here is, this is in SQL world, this is called an order by. We could say by the total. You have all these things in here. I'm just going to pick total. It's fine with me right now. I'm going to hit next. Okay, then the question is, hey, how often do you want this to run? Now, remember, we have our time zones here. We can say, I want this to run. On the left-hand side is British time, UTC. I am in Central, so I want to say I want this to run 6 a.m. Central time for my balance sheet. And you know, do I really want it every day? I don't know. Maybe I want it actually only every month, or I can go advance and I could say, go pull it for me every quarter if I want to do something like that. But whatever. We're going to pick this one. I'm going to say next, and I'm going to title this the way that I usually title things. And again, you do not have to do this, but I am a big fan of naming conventions. So I'm going to say organization. We're going to call this one accounting, or it could be finance maybe. I'm going to put a pipe. Source is going to be QuickBooks, and I'm going to say balance sheet. My fault. Okay, save and run. Now, while that's going, I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to first share it with anybody I need to share it with. And I am going to go to add tag. Again, you do not have to do this, but these are little things that make life easier. I'm going to do QuickBooks and I'm going to do accounting. So now if I'm searching for a data set, for instance, this is where I can look. Okay, it ran. Let's go take a look. Let's go see what we got. I'm going to hit data at the top. Okay, let's go see what we have in this data. So we have different accounts here, and this is something that you do want to pay attention to, where I've seen this where uh, the number of the account is pretty important because you want to know what you're pulling correctly. But anyway, what you see in here, we have different parts of the balance sheet like checking cash, petty cash, AR, whatever. We have that. We have total here. We have different group names. So here are my assets, obviously. Here are my liabilities and equity against the balance sheet. So those all have to tie up together. We have different group names. Okay, so here is something that you should know. There's a group name 1, a group name 2, 3, 4, 5. There are so many granular levels of it. What you want to know is sometimes when I've done this, when I've worked with different accountants, they might be looking for a certain category, but they might not know which group it's in. So for instance, you might not know is bank account, is that in group 2, is it group 3, group 4? So before you start, just peruse, hit filter, take a look, see what do you have here. I have other assets, long-term liabilities. Okay, here's accounts, here's credit cards. Okay, got that. Okay, what else is in here? This is this one. Just take a look and see what you have to deal with. That will help you much faster than kind of thinking everything is in group 1. I've been hit with that before, so just take your time. Okay, anyway, that's how to do the balance sheet report. Okay, let's go to the P&L or the profit and loss. So we're going to do it all over again. We're going to go to data at the top, hit the connector cloud icon. Here, I'm going to type in QuickBooks. Beautiful. We're going to do the online reports. Select our account, please. Hit next. And we're just going to go to a different report. We're going to go to reports and we are going to go to profits and loss. Let's do the detailed version. Let's get more granular. Again, we have the same exact thing where we can say, with date range, I'm going to do my version, custom date range. I'm going to say relative is 730 days back until 1 day back. Again, do I care if it's cash or accrual? Maybe I don't. Here's something very different. Now, with select columns, I'll show you what happens here. You can pick, do you want all this stuff? You could say everything in here. If you don't pick it, it's automatically going to give you everything. So if you just want to pick certain parts and you don't want, I don't know, tax code or tax date for whatever reason, you can pick what you want. But there we go. Now we're going to hit next. Same thing. I'm going to pick every day. I'm going to say every day at 6 a.m. Central Time. Be very cautious that if you are on freemium model, remember it burns a credit a day if you're pulling from this. So be just conscious about that. Unless you upgrade, then you can get more credits to pull. We're going to hit next. Put in my naming convention, which in this case is organization, accounting, source, QuickBooks, pipe. I'm going to change this one to be profit and loss detail. Let's hit save and run and see what happens. Okay, mine ran in a couple seconds, pretty quick. I'm going to go hit data at the top and let's go take a look at the data that we have. Okie dokie. So what you can see here is we have a date. That's usually a transaction date of when something happened. We have invoices. I'm going to hit this little filter. You can see I have bills, checks, credit card, all this stuff in here that I want. I have journal entries. That's really what I'll usually use a lot for any type of analysis. I don't really care too much about the transaction type ID. That's really tied to each one of these lines. These numbers are also kind of IDs that are used as well. We have created dates, created by. Okay, everything kind of the same. No big problemo. Last modify. I don't really look at the last modify things. What I will look at is definitely names. Here is where I can kind of see where these invoices, who are they to, stuff like that. Okie dokie. We have memo descriptions, right? Split, right? If an invoice was maybe split among different components, we have that. So you have all these pieces in here. Amount, that's one that I'll use definitely all the time. Okay, balance. We got to talk about balance. Balance is at the point in time. So if you pull in balance, you could be double counting. You don't want to summarize balance. For instance, if you're saying if there's a transaction happening every single day for a week, the balance is also going to grow. So if you add it all up, you're kind of like double counting by almost every day. So just be careful with that. What you'd want to do is you'd want to like do the max or group by thing. We can get into that later, but that's a little helpful hint. Okay, this is very, very important. We have our group 0 name, group 1 name, group 2 name. What you should do, what I would suggest you do, is when you are looking at this data for the first time, talk to your accountant if you have an accountant and pull up what you see in QuickBooks and pull up what you see in Domo. There might need to be a couple of mapping sessions that you have just to make sure that you're pulling in the correct pieces and that you have the right filters on so you are doing it correctly. So for instance, you might say, hey, I just want to know how we're doing on sales. And maybe that's all coming in QuickBooks. Well, then I would probably look at income. And I just say, okay, income, and then that's in group 1. Cool. There we go. Right. And maybe I only want to look at, I don't know, whatever income you want to look at. You can pick it here in group 2, but you have options. Okay. All right, there we go. That's pretty straightforward how to use the profit and loss detail piece. Okay, let's go get the general ledger from QuickBooks. This is the one that I use the most often, more than the balance sheet, more than the profit and loss, because I kind of want that detailed breakdown so that I can do a lot more analysis on it. But let's go to it. We're going to go to our data connector at the top, hit the little cloud icon, and we're right back where we are. We're going to go type in QuickBooks, go to Online Report Connector, and I'm going to pick QuickBooks, hit Next, Reports, and I'm going to move that out, and I'm going to do here, and I'm going to look for General Ledger. There we go. And again, you can pick your custom date range. So I'm going to say a relative 730 days back to another relative to a 1. And again, pick cash or accrual if you happen to know what those are. And we're going to go next. I'm going to pick mine to run at 6 a.m. again. Hit next, and I'm going to paste in my naming convention, which is organization, accounting, source, QuickBooks pipe here. You do not have to do this, but this is what I do. This is kind of like my signature move. General Ledger. All right, save and run. All right, it ran. Let's go take a look at what we have. So I hit data at the top. Let's go see what we have here. We have dates, we have transaction types. Okay, this is great. Now here's something that I really do a lot. I will go to transaction type and I won't do anything here. In the ETL is where I'll start doing pieces because there is double counting happening in here. No-ish, right? What's happening is you have double entries. You could have something that's put in a journal entry, but it's also put as a credit card, other parts like that. So I'll usually in the ETL just say I only care about journal entries. Okay, so let's talk about some of the main columns that I use when I'm using QuickBooks, the general ledger. I will first use date. Now, what I'll also do in the ETL, I will change this date timestamp format to just a date. I just need to be the date. Okay. And what I would suggest you do is you work with your accountant, if you have one, to just make sure that the report you're pulling out of Domo matches what they see. There might be a little bit of plugging the wires and connecting them to see what you got. But I'll pick date. Transaction type is another one that I will use. Again, if I click here, I have these other categories: bill, check, invoice, payment, etc. But I'll use transaction type. I don't really care about the last modified. For me, names I tend to not really use too much. But again, if you need it, you do it. Quantity, don't really use that one. Account, sure, see if you need it. AR, don't use too much. Amount, that's one that I'll use a lot. And now we can start to see, we can say, hey, in these journal entries, here are the different amounts that we had for an action that happened. So now when I do some math in the ETL, just to double check, I can sum it all up and make sure that I'm doing it correctly and that I'm getting the right number every time. So I would suggest, hey, you pulled it in, double check your numbers, just make sure you understand how the QuickBooks data looks when it is processed in an ETL. Okay, that's it. That's how to use the QuickBooks connector. I'll tell you a story that I have worked with some people who've used the QuickBooks connector, and it's great. They pull it in, so now they can see how much are they spending on supplies, how much do they owe, the revenue, all that stuff kind of coming straight out of QuickBooks. So enjoy it. Hope it works out for you, and now you have much more visibility on your financials.